I wanted to make sure we talked about, because you said a lot of people ask you about your business and starting your business. Why don't you go over what made you start your business and maybe that time period in general?
What made me start my business?
Yeah, why'd you end up with a business? Why aren't you working for somebody? What made you go into business?
Well, first of all, I'm one of those kinds of people that has a lot of drive to make to do something better for myself. And I saw where I was working, I was billing out more than anybody else there, and they were paying me, I mean, like $15 an hour. That's when I got my state license. And I got a job somewhere else because I felt like they didn't really appreciate me. And because I had a state license after 2 years, they kind of started treating me like I was a threat to their company or something and fired me. So I had no customers, no Yellow Pages ads, no nothing. And I had to make the decision, go get another job or start my own business. And my wife was working and she was making enough money to help me out. So I jumped in with both feet and just started knocking on doors, mostly rental companies and stuff, trying to get my foot in the door. And the first 2, 3 years were kind of rough. If my wife hadn't been working, I'm not sure I would have been able to do it. But after that, I started making a good income, and it's just been rolling ever since.
What time period? What year was this?
Um, Started in 2010, and it was not long after this great recession, and people were telling me, "No, don't do it now. It's not a good time."
Yeah.
Well, I did it anyway.
Yeah, I started mine in 2009, so I can definitely understand that. So whenever you first started, of course things are rough, especially with the circumstances you described. When you say you went and knocked on doors, were you physically out trying to track down people that had rental properties? Were you? Is that what you
Oh,
were actually doing?
oh yes, I would go visit people. I got to know every property manager in town, and sometimes if you can go to magistrate court when they're doing evictions, a lot of landlords are in there or the property managers are in there because they need to evict somebody. And that's a good place to meet them if you, some of them aren't in the yellow pages or something. And I would go and pass out cards there. And yes, I would go to like rental companies and ask to speak to the property manager and try to make a good impression and give them my cards. And some of it worked.
Now, how successful? If you went to 10 of those places, how successful were you at getting work out of it? How many of them do you think would give you some form of work?
Um, let's just say in the beginning, I went after 10 of them. There were three that landed me good work and a good amount of work.
I think that's pretty good. Really. I mean, you look at advertising and you think about bulk advertising, and you're lucky if you get anywhere near that. You would never get anywhere near that. So that's are these people still with you today? The same
Yes,
companies?
some of them are, yes. Now, one of them I quit working for, and it's a really big company, and I'll tell you why. They and I was giving them a low labor rate, thinking that was somehow to my advantage. They would send me out to diagnose a system, and this was the kind of company, if it's like over $500, they'll replace it. So
Right.
I would go out and diagnose and give them an estimate to replace it, and then they would give the job to some jackleg who would, excuse my language, half-ass it, not pull a
Mm-hmm.
permit, and I ended up getting kind of mad about that. And I told them, I said, if you can't give me the first bid on the job, don't call me. So I dropped them.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I remember a place I was called out there for like a second opinion or something like that, and they had property management people that would come out and change out the units for like $500, it was one of those places you just had to say no and just slowly walk away from, because you were never going to make any money, and they were just using you to diagnose things and figure things out for them.
I know
And
it. And I said I was giving them a low labor rate. When I started working with them, my labor rate was $45 an hour.
that's
You
pretty
know,
low.
and they said, well, they told me, well, we're paying your labor rate. And I said, that's not enough to keep the lights on. Are you kidding? I need the work.
I think when people say I'm charging $45 an hour for service or whatever labor, they're thinking that you're making $45 an hour. You're like some kind of engineer or something. I really do believe it's like the people that say if Walmart sells something for $5, if you should also sell it for $5 after you purchase. It's like people who don't believe in profit or just don't understand the process. Got to
Well,
get away from those people.
my labor rate now is twice that.
Yeah.
And the other companies that got on board with me back then never blinked an eye. They saw my work and saw that I was doing good work and I was dependable. Now that I'm charging my labor rate 90 an hour during regular work hours, they don't care. They're more than willing to pay it.